Hey, First United Methodist family, Pastor Shannon here with our weekly update. So, this past Saturday, my husband and I were working at a local coffee shop near our house, and I was reading from one of my seminary textbooks. And as I was reading, one of the workers who worked there, an elderly gentleman, he came up to me and he said, "Oh, looks like somebody is taking a New Testament class." And I said, "Yeah, how did you know?" Well, we got to talking, and it turns out that he was a retired pastor and he'd actually used to teach at my seminary, St. Paul School of Theology. So, as we're chatting, he asked, "Well, what is it that you're studying?" And I said, "Well, right now we're in the Gospel of Mark." And it's really funny because it seems like I've been really immersed in the Gospel of Mark lately. So, not only am I studying it in school and writing a paper about it, but we've also been using the Gospel of Mark as our text for the sermon series, Signs and Wonders. Our first three miracle stories all came from the Gospel of Mark as we looked at the paralyzed man and how Jesus calmed the storm. And last week, Jesus healed two different women. It's also going to be where we get our scripture for next week as we talk about Jesus healing a blind man in Mark chapter 8. But I have to tell you, as I've been learning more about the Gospel of Mark, I have found that it is just a fascinating little book. So it is one of three what is known as synoptic Gospels, and but it's the shortest of them. And a lot of its material is also contained in the books of Matthew and Luke. So they both used Mark as one of the primary sources for what they were writing. But it's very fascinating because it's this really fast-paced gospel. So the two most popular words in Mark in the original Greek are and immediately, because Jesus is always moving from one thing to the next, one story to the next, just constantly on the go. That is until you get to the last week of his life, Holy Week or Passion Week, as we're leading up to his crucifixion. And then the pace of Mark just really slows down, and Mark captures all the details of these final hours leading up to Jesus's death and crucifixion on a cross. So, like I said, this has been just a really fun time for me to study the book of Mark, and I wonder if maybe that's something you would want to do with me this Lent. So we've got just a few more weeks left in Lent, but there's plenty of time if you wanted to read through the book of Mark. I encourage you actually to do it in one sitting if possible. This was a book that was originally written to be read aloud in a community context in one sitting. And you see so much when you are able to just kind of sit through and read it as a complete narrative rather than chunking it up into individual pieces like we usually do. We'll also be studying the Passion story of Mark's Gospel on Good Friday, which is April 7th. I'd love to see you there at our services. And then on Easter Sunday, I'll be exploring the open ending of Mark's Gospel. It kind of leaves you, I guess you could say, on a cliffhanger. So we'll talk about what that looks like in our own lives. So I hope you all have a great week. I hope you enjoy learning more about the book of Mark today.